So today we're going to look at horses. It might be kind of funny, but about horses and thinking. And we're going to focus on what's called mindfulness. So believe it or not, horses have a certain mindfulness. And I'm going to ask you, if you've not ridden horses or keeping horses, or that's not your direction, whatever kind of embodiment that you have with being in the world, as Heidegger calls it, focus on that when we have the questions. So for me, I'm into horses. Grace Ann's into horses. If I hadn't gotten into horses, I probably wouldn't have gotten married to Grace Ann. She wouldn't have me. First thing she did was take me to meet Nadian, her stallion. And actually, this is a picture of Nadian and Grace Ann taking a photo of him behind me. And he's an Arabian stallion. She had this stallion for 33 years, I think. And finally, he died a few years ago. They were bonded like completely. I used to ride Nadian, and I'll talk up a little bit about that in my example. But this will be my example, and where I'll go with that is use my embodiment mindfulness with horses to understand something about Heidegger's book on mindfulness and Guy Debord's Society of the Spectacle. So those of you who don't know that much about me, I wrote several books on postmodern approaches to management and society, and a lot of it was based in Guy Debord's particular work on Society of the Spectacle. I won't be going into all of that, or much of it, except I'll touch ground here and there with a couple of sections from Heidegger on the notion of forgetfulness, and also in Guy Debord. I don't want to do too much of that right now. I'd rather just get into the embodiment example and then ask you for your embodiment, how you get embodied. And that could be many different ways in many different kinds of worlds. So mine is going to start with the horse world. So I'd like to show you two horses, and let's see if we can get that to work. So that, and let's see if you can see these. And I'll make them bigger for you. All right. Are you seeing two horses? Nod or
Yes.
something like that.
Lucky
Okay.
boy and fancy girl.
All right. Lucky Boy has been my horse for, I don't know, 12 years or more. And he's getting older. So he's a big horse. I don't know how many hands, but when I need an elevator to get off of him and a staircase to get on him, I'll put it that way. And he's a quarter horse, and the other horse is also a quarter horse, and we'll talk about that. But he's very, very good at the trot, very smooth trot, very smooth canter. I don't canter him anymore because, canter is a lot more vigorous, and we go and feed him special grain morning and night, about half a gallon of it, to keep the weight on, the protein. If we weren't doing that, he wouldn't be rideable at all. So it's coming near the end of his time, and he'll live out his old age in Caballo. You can see Caballo written on the other horse picture. So I love Lucky Boy very much. And then I got this horse that's going to be the horse that I ride more regularly and go on trails and do maybe a couple of jumps, a couple of other things. And she's called Fancy Girl. She's called Fancy, but I figured since I got a lucky boy, I'll have a fancy girl, So now Fancy Girl is smaller, and she'd been raised in more what's called the Western kind of style of riding. And she would cut cows. In other words, she would be able to go behind a cow and pull that cow out of a herd. I don't have a herd of cows, but so and there were the last owners had some children and they were using Fancy Girl to barrel race, which I understand Fancy Girl particularly hated that activity. You know, it's going very quick, around the barrel, another barrel coming back. It's a lot of spurs in her side, and it's very hyper kind of activity. So I'm riding Fancy Girl, and I find her to be ridiculous. It's like a children's horse, you know. She's not moving. She's slow. She's pretty. I got her a nice little bridle with some artificial diamonds on it and things, you know. And I've been treating her really special. But every day I ride her, and it's like there's no go. Now, Lucky Boy will get up and go. You get on him, and you can't make any movements on Lucky Boy with your legs. If you even touch his side, he will go into a trot. If you touch it again, he will go into full canter, which is pretty active, and he's got a speed after that. So I've learned to just sit there and little seat movement, little touch. I don't even pull the reins. I used to pull the reins, pull them that way and that way. That's what kids do. I just think, I don't even have to say the word trot. I just say, I think it in my mind, and he starts trotting. I don't even have to move. You understand? And he goes. And then I think, oh, okay, it'd be nice to canter now, which I'm not doing. And if he doesn't get it, I can just take my left or right heel and just kind of touch it to his side very, very gently. And boom, he's off. Now, let's look at Fancy Girl. I can touch her side. I could wrap both of my legs and put them tight around her. She's going slow. She's not kicking, So I went and complained to my coach, my riding coach, Sandra. I said, Sandra, this horse is awful. I mean, it's like a kiddie horse, like the clowns bring to your house and you ride it around the block or something. And I feel like an idiot riding this horse. She said, and then this is the coaching she gave me. She didn't use purview. She just hit me right between the eyes. Said, David, you don't know how to ride this horse. I said, what are you talking about? I've been riding here at your barn. I've been paying lessons for you for, I don't know, 18 years. and she says, yes, but you are well suited to do Lucky Boy. You don't have a clue how to ride this horse. This horse is an amazing horse. I go, what the heck? What? And she says, Fancy Girl can do what's called Western dressage. And I think she could be a champion dressage horse and get ribbons and all that. I'm going, I'm not seeing it. I'm like flopping around in this horse and no go. And she says, well, if you know what you're doing for this horse, she goes. So I had my lesson this morning, and my first lesson, I had to get up a little early, go in early, got a half hour of coaching. And she said, okay, what's the difference between Lucky Boy and Fancy Girl? Lucky Boy, you can't do any fancy dressage work with this horse. You can go around in circles, you can go fast, slow, but Lucky Boy doesn't accept going through a jump, doesn't accept, they got gates, different things you do in a competition, won't do that. In fact, that horse it will take care of you, but just does its own thing. You and the horse are doing their own thing. Now you compare that to your other horse, Fancy Girl. Fancy Girl will, if you aren't given the commands with your body, embodiment, in the right manner, that horse won't do anything. Why? Why, David? I said, I don't know, because that horse will protect you at all costs. That horse will not make a move unless you've given the signal to do it. That's why you're having so much struggle. I said, okay, I'm feeling like an idiot, feeling like an idiot. What do I do? She said, what I want you to do is to have a rhythm that Western horses that are roping horses and cutting horses and even Western dressage. There's dressage coming out of Germany, or English dressage, European dressage, a special kind of riding. And then there's the dressage in the Western states here. Okay, the difference is you won't even see the cues the rider is using in German or European dressage that's done. It's very subtle, very subtle. Unless you're in the game, you wouldn't know. But in Western dressage, you have a rhythm of sort of kicking your feet on the side of the horse every 3 strides. So the horse makes 3 strides, kick the horse at both feet in the side. And if you do that, and you're not hurting the horse, it's just a gentle kick, it's a tap. However, since this horse is not trained well before you by the last owners and not by you, since you've been riding, you're going to have to kick it a little harder. Kick her a little harder in the side. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I did it at the walk, and then let her go 3 strides, 2, 3, and then 3 strides. And she actually kept up her walk all around and completely responded to my cues where to go, without tugging on the reins or anything like that. Then we did the trot, and my coach said, now I want you to do 3 kicks in the side. You're at the walk. Then I want you to say trot. She won't respond to the cue, but just do trot and then 3 kicks on the side. Let her go 3 paces, 3 kicks on the side, get into a rhythm. One of the things about Aristotle narrative we talked about is rhythm, that it has a rhythm. So this horse was so responsive. I couldn't even believe I'm on the same horse. She just was so happy to have a rider on her that knew what the hell they were doing. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but I knew enough that she's like trained in a particular methodology, particular cues from a rider. She grew up that way. She's 14 years old, whereas Lucky Boy is probably 26 years old, winding down on his age. So that's my embodiment story. And what I want to ask you now is, when have you been embodied where you got to know something about yourself? I'll show you these just to summarize some of the things I'm noticing about the 2 horses. Lucky Boy, soft touch, or takes off any which way. You'll be safe with Lucky Boy, but not going to do any kind of dressage work. Fancy Girl, you need a rhythm of kicks in the side, and she'll do very well. At the trot, you say trot or even think trot, Lucky Boy goes. Fancy Girl, as I should say, you got to kick. I said kick both sides 3 times. Get in that rhythm. Mindfulness, my forgetfulness of the ways I learned from Nadian. I actually was trained in that German English dressage through Grace Ann. Not an expert, but I knew how to do it. And I could do that with Nadian. And then I had Lucky Boy, and I couldn't do the same kind of cues on Lucky Boy that I did on Nadian. So I knew it, but I forgot it. In Fancy Girl, the mindfulness there is my lack of Western dressage understanding. I didn't grow up that way. Fancy is not listening to me, but always protects me as the rider. Vortex will come up later in the session because both Heidegger and Debord use the word something about vortex in their writing. Lucky Boy is in control of the ride in that vortex. That swirl, Lucky Boy stays in control. In Fancy Girl's objective is to protect the rider and leave the rider in control. But if the rider isn't exercising control, then nothing is going to happen. So that's what I want to ask you is the following question. Two questions, I guess. I had a superficial mindfulness of Fancy Girl and Lucky Boy, as it turns out. I didn't understand the difference between Lucky Boy and Nadian in terms of their ability to do kind of British German dressage. And I didn't understand Fancy Girl and was not mindful that it was my fault as the writer not getting her to do what she's capable of doing. So can you think of your own embodiment in whatever situation you like and give an example, and then we'll turn to another question about thinking or in thinking that overcomes such superficial mindfulness. So my in thinking example is I had to learn to think differently about my new horse. So that's about it. So we can either go out in pairs or you can stay all on the same group, and I'll ask you which thing you want to do. Sabine.
But first of all, I think I'm having some problems with terminology here. Like for example, the horse terminology you're using, I am not familiar with any of them.
Well, it
Forgive
only
me.
took me 30 years. I'm not
I
surprised you
I
didn't
don't
catch
know what,
up.
I don't know what dressage is. I don't know.
Okay. I
I
can
don't know
explain
what
that if
canter
it'll help.
is, and I mean, I just don't understand horse world. And the other question I have is, sounds dumb, but I'm just gonna say it. I am not clear on what embodiment is. I'm just gonna
Okay.
say it.
Okay, so I can try to answer those questions if it'll be helpful. Would that be helpful?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, so dressage is very formal writing. You go through like a series of maybe 30 kind of actions, and you're penalized if you miss the action or if you take the action in the wrong part of the arena. So there's a set of judges, and they judge every aspect of the horse ability to stay on that circuit of things that they're doing. So it'll be doing things in one part of the arena, maybe trotting to another part of the arena, maybe cantering here, maybe just walking, maybe turning. So those activities are done with very, very precise scoring in dressage. So they have dressage champions and they have dressage champion horses. So a dressage horse might sell for $1 million or more
Oh,
because it's
so
so
it's so
specifically
like
trained.
those horses, in Vienna. That would be an extreme example of that.
The horse that's the Lippensanders, and
Yeah.
they jump up on command, they do things in groups,
I mean,
and
they're like dancing.
yeah, it's sort of in the same ballpark, but not the same.
Okay. Okay.
And embodiment is, as Olivia's and Tom have talked about, is we have neurons in all over our body, and we don't just think with our brain, we think with our body, our whole body. So the embodiment is a connection to being in a world, but not just thinking it, not
So
just,
in other words, I mean, it's that, it's the whole thing. I mean, it can be, is that like the conglomerate of
yeah, it's a good, it's,
like feeling, like physical sensations.
Yeah, it's all the five senses: smell, touch, hearing,
Okay, all the five senses. Okay,
and
thank you.
especially you're feeling the horse, and
Okay.
you're watching the breathing. I watch the ears move. I watch the head turn. I feel I'm in the rhythm. I'm out of the rhythm. So it's not something I can articulate like with rational thought. It's happening at
So
another
it's like,
level.
I mean, in a way, would it align then with attunement?
I think so. I got a slide coming up that tries to
Oops.
argue
Okay, sorry.
that.
Okay, I'll be quiet now, David. Thank you.
No,
That
no,
helped
I
a lot.
mean it's and I think it's yeah, I'll bring it up later with attunement, so answer yes.
Okay, that helped a lot, David. Thank you, because I
Betty, I
always
see you want, and let's see, I say Olivia had her hand up, so let me take Olivia and then you, Betty, okay? So go ahead.
Thanks. Well, so I have an example of embodiment, but I want to share because it just occurred to me that when I rode horses when I was young, and then when I was after college, I just wanted to ride, so I took lessons where I was living in New Jersey just to get back on horses. But I was so in my head and was for most of my life completely that I would literally drink a beer before the class so I could relax. And now I understand what I was doing was just like kind of shutting off my brain so I could relax into the riding. And I could give you another example for the horse, but I think one of the most powerful examples of um, embodiment was when I was at a leadership training in Northern Canada, and we were canoeing, and I had done a lot of canoeing as a camp as a kid, so I knew the mechanics of it. And so and the person with my partner had never done it. So I'm telling, okay, do this, do this, do this. And it was we were just having a lot of trouble getting momentum. And then we just started talking about something, and pretty soon we were in this rhythm and we were moving just so beautifully. And I went, oh, that's how you do it. You don't think, you just feel. So I feel like I was embodied and even in the quantum field with this other person in a connection.
Yeah, that's a terrific example. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Olivia. Okay, that really clarifies it. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
Hi, Betty.
yeah, David, this is going to sound like I'm coming in a little late, but I wanted to explain that the word dressage is French, and
Okay.
it means to train, well, training, since it's the noun form. When I first came to France, I was horrified to see that a good teacher was considered to be someone who corrected, who put in the right behavior and way of thinking of kids. And it really was, if your essay doesn't have two lines under the title, then you're not very good in form. But that was there. Today they're very different. But the word dresser in the beginning meant to make upright. People being sloppy needed to be made upright. But the word dressage, which went into the horse world, was the idea of giving them structure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. There's a lot of terminology in dressage and in Western writing and Western dressage. My point
Mm.
is that these are very individual worlds, and you kind
Yeah.
of have to be in the world of the language, but also
Mm.
the embodiment of what's going on. So the canoeing example is a really good example. So I'm interested in what embodiment you have where you felt, yeah, this is my niche. I'm grooving with it. I'm in the rhythm. Or you got in a situation that's the opposite, and you're like, dang, when I met Grace Ann, she put me on a horse and like a stallion and said, take your foot out of the stirrups. I was terrified, absolutely terrified of that, but I didn't say anything. I wanted to have the relationship being so, but I don't know, embodiment. What do you think? Do you have any experiences with it, or Paul?
I do, and it's a very odd that an experience of mine tutoring elementary school children is somehow a part of this conversation. Oh, horses and Heidegger. But about, I have to look it up in my notes. I was with a young boy who had been assigned to me I was his tutor. He was in, I think, either the first or the second grade. And my task was to help him learn to read. And first, second, and third grade, typically in elementary school, is a lot about reading. The 3 R's, the old thing that was in our heads from our earliest memory for me. The 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. And so here I am at my advanced age with a boy in the first grade, somebody 7, 8 years old. And I worked with him from September, October, November, and December. And I was as out of it, using your description about fancy girl, like, what the hell is going on? Why is this not working? Me and this horse, something is just not right.
Sure.
And that's where I was at. I had this perception that I'm not being a good tutor. I'm not teaching this kid. I'm not getting anywhere. And in part of my dismay, it was probably the last lesson prior to the Christmas vacation, whatever year that was, 10 years ago. And I put on my stern, teacherly, schoolmaster, ruler head and said, well, I just haven't been clear in communicating to this young boy, whose name, I think you can say it here without any problem. His name was Iakov, Iakov. And I succeeded in my dictatorial, authoritarian approach, which I said, well, I have to fall back on something, so I'm going to do this. The little boy reclined in the chair, leaned back, closed his eyes, and I was dumbstruck. I said to myself, he just took himself out of the conversation, out of the space, out of the time that we were in. And I said, oh, this little boy has completely tuned me out.
Yeah.
What did I do to bring about that state of reality? And that session ended abruptly and painfully for me. And I left the premises of the school and went home, and I'm sitting there going like this, what am I supposed to learn?
Yeah.
Because there's something that I have gotten completely wrong as a person in their 70s communicating, which ought to be just a piece of cake. For me, this savvy adult talking to a 8-year-old kid. And I was helpless. I was clueless.
That's a good example. there.
And you earlier, David, and I'll just mention this, and I need to be quiet and let other people talk. And it was about as not in my body as I could be. I
Yeah.
was utterly Mr. Abstract, Mr. Elite college guy. And I said, "Oh, what's wrong with that?"
Why is that a problem? Yeah.
And you told the story about a similar on your first day or one of your first teaching sessions at grad school when you walked into the
Oh,
classroom.
I did.
Off you went, and you realized, 30 minutes into the time or 20 minutes into the time, all of these students, they have tuned me out. They're not listening. I'm the
A
teacher.
common
I'm the guy.
experience for me. See,
Mhm.
Paul, I appreciate
That's
your example. Thank
the
you.
parallel. That's what happened to me. I could go on with this story to the aftermath, but I
Well,
need
you
to be quiet and
hang
let
in
other
there.
people.
You'll have an opportunity to come back in it.
Yeah.
So, Tom, you want to give an example?
All right. This starts when I'm 6 years old, and my uncle put me on a tractor and let me drive it around out in the field.
Ah,
And I began my love of driving at that age. My father owned a school bus business, so by the time I was 10, I would feel comfortable getting in a bus and driving it around out in the farm fields and things like that, shifting standard transmissions, all that stuff. Fast forward, I'm now 7 years ago, deciding I'm going to buy a motorhome. And my son and I go down to Florida. I found this motorhome down there. And we get in it, and I have in my uh, superficial mindfulness this idea of me hopping in this thing, just getting in and taking off and driving all over the place and having the greatest time of my life. And then we got in the thing, and I started realizing as the guy was explaining this thing, that it was a lot more complicated than I had ever thought of it was. It was more than jumping into this thing. So I said to my son, why don't you drive first? So he did. He was more comfortable. And we got to Atlanta, and it's rush hour traffic, 5 lanes wide, people driving around, and I have now taken the wheel. And I am sitting there in my mindfulness. Now, with all the driving I did, I never drove something that had the flat front like a motor, like a big coach does, where you're literally looking through the windshield and there's no hood. I can't stay in my lane. There's people on both sides. I'm looking around. My son goes, Dad, get over. You're going to hit the guy on the right side. I go, no, I'm going to hit the guy on the left side. So in my embodiment of the idea of just hopping in this thing and driving suddenly changed to the reality of living in this experience. And now I'm trying to cut out 5 lanes of traffic to get over to the exit onto the next road. Good news is when something that big, you just start turning and they get out of your way. Learn that real quick because they're afraid you're going to run them over. But finally got over there. And as we progressed back toward Michigan, I discovered a lot of things. One was when we came up and two semis passed us on both sides, the whole motorhome was shaking rocking like a boat. And it was like, man, this thing is terrifying to drive. Why did I buy this thing? I started questioning what am I going to do? I can't deal with this. And by the time we drove the 2,000 miles to Michigan, and then by the time I drove another 2,000, 2,500 miles to Arizona, I became very comfortable. So now I'm embodied actually in the comfort of what is getting behind a wheel and actually driving the thing, looking out the windows and enjoying it. But I went through that period of superficial embodiment to where now I'm actually embodied. I feel comfortable driving it and I really enjoy it. So that's my little story.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Wow.
Let's go on to a couple more slides unless somebody's burning to share an example because you'll have plenty of opportunity coming up. So let me see if I can get you further into this than maybe you ever want to be. We'll find out. Okay, so what's the point of today's session? You're probably still asking. But Guy Debord and Martin Heidegger's concepts of mindfulness address a struggle for authentic presence. That's the commonality I'm finding between them. Amidst our modern distractions, but they diverge in aim and method. So I think we talked about this before, so I'm not sure I'm gonna dwell on this one. What is mindfulness? But I will dwell on this second one. How is forgetting relating to mindfulness? What are the limits of tuning into here and now with horses trained to respond to different cues is my example. But I want to get at this notion of forgetting. Let's go. That's about the attunement one. So let me drop out of here and let me also, I'm going to look at Heidegger's book. And there's a section in here. I have to find glasses because I need glasses for this kind of work. Let's see, not that one. All right. So as I remember, it's sort of page 191, something like that. So there's a section of about 4 pages in the book. And I'd like to just go into it a little bit. The topic is the forgetfulness of being. So my example, I'll stay in my mindfulness arena with the horses for a bit, is that I had forgetfulness and I had a superficial mindfulness of this new horse. I just forgot that horses are different. Number one, I forgot that if they're trained in Western and they're trained in more European style, they're going to be different. And it's the rider's responsibility to learn that difference. So when Heidegger starts out, he says the forgottenness of being. The forgottenness of being is the forgottenness that is held unto the ground, or abground, as he calls it. And it is the forgetfulness, or the forgottenness, rather, that is turned toward being. So in other words, I'm thinking I'm being mindful with this new horse, that I'm paying careful attention, but I'm at a superficial level. I'm not really in touch with the needs, background, history, training, demeanor of that horse. So that's not a good thing, right? And I'm not retaining what I know about dressage, if I can use that word, it won't freak people out. So I'm not retaining some of the things I did know that I put on the side. So there's a retainedness that he's talking about here. And now he says that when we forget into forgetfulness, the things were forgotten. On that page 191, he talks about the vortex, which in the last sessions we talked about the word abyss. And when we're in the swirl of that, like I think Tom's example of 2 semi-trucks on either side of his motorhome, he's not sure if he's touching one or the other, and he knows that he's shaking in between the two. So there's this notion that the forgottenness seems to be almost a matter of utmost indifference. So I was indifferent. I grew indifferent to this new horse. In fact, I was ready to just not fulfill the contract for this horse. I was so discouraged with this horse. Now I'm super excited. Now, what changed there is I'm starting to retain something about being and my superficial understanding of being, and I know I have to go deeper into being in the world I'm in. I'm not saying you all should go into horses and all that. First of all, it's very expensive, more expensive than boats. So but whatever you're into, it's easy to forget and equate with nothingness, in quotes, which is obvious reference to Jean-Paul Sartre's work that Heidegger's aware of. And the nothingness, I was starting to treat the horse as nothingness. Like, I don't even want to ride this horse. Just put me on lucky boy. I know what I'm doing. I feel good about it. So he calls this on page 192, superficial forgetting. You know, that in my example, I think would fit that. So if there's this balance between understanding as an attunement, as Sabine used the word before, we're attuned, like a tuning fork, and forgetting, we're attuned also to forgetting of being. I'm starting to be aware how I could get into a superficial mindfulness of thinking I understand my students in university life when I don't. I understand people on Zoom when I don't. I don't take enough breaks and hear what their stories are. So that sort of thing is happening. Now, there's a lot of stuff I'm not going to go into here. But he calls it not thinking of being on page 193, that we get into kind of a shallowness and we're not actually thinking of being. So we're losing our sensitivity to being by just treating it as, well, okay, it's driving, I can drive this or drive that. And then we find out the difference. Or I think I can get on another horse, and I've ridden several horses in my life, so it should be the same. Well, it's not the same, you know? So Heidegger says we can never eliminate the forgottenness of being. How much I'm forgetting to notice and be sensitive and embodied to. He doesn't use the word embody, but I think it's that sort of thing, etc. So just to go to the last part of this, the page 194, and this was intriguing to me, that I want to be understanding of the world I'm in. Mine is the world of horses. So, but we could also say the world of coaching or the world of teaching or the world of friendship or all kinds of things. And I want to have that openness to the refusal that I get into, like a refusal to go below the superficial. Now, I don't always do that. I'm not a shallow guy usually, but sometimes, hello, we all are. And in that case, I can get into the idea that my categories that I substitute for being, like the dressage language, for example, Sabine pointed that out, but any kind of scientific language as well, or any kind of language categories, or just, I don't even know if it's fair to call it a language category, just categorizing, you know, like we fall into kind of or I fall into a kind of getting into, well, this is nothing. I don't need to learn this. I don't need to go deeper here, but I do. This is like coaching. I need to go really deep in a whole lot of areas, from neuro-linguistic programming to a lot of different topics, and the spiritual, Renee, and plant medicine and all the rest of it. I mean, how deep does this go? You know? But he's making a point about the development of these categories and systems. Like, I'm a systems guy. That's me. I was trained in systems thinking my whole career. But then he asks in the last sentence, I'm not making this up, it's the last sentence on that page 194. But do we think And then there's the rest of the sentence. I'm not sure it'll help you if I read the rest of it. But in other words, do we in-think the big questions that are the important questions to ask? I was not thinking of the questions I needed to ask to have that relationship with fancy girls. So that's my thing. I'll read the rest of the sentence just because I don't know. I know it won't make any sense, but it makes sense to me. So, but do we think the origin of the nullifying at the same time as we are knowingly aware of the originary forgottenness of being, and then in brackets, that belongs to the being itself. The end. So there's something deep that's in that 4 pages that is just what belongs to being itself is my lack of understanding of being. I would summarize it that way. In other words, if I have a shallow mindfulness, I risk not asking the questions, I suppose. So I'll ask you, what does it mean to be mindful of being in the world that you're in? I'm obviously in a different world than you are. I agree we're all on planet Earth, okay? I accept that. But my worlds are completely different than your worlds. I saved a kind of Texas spider the other day. Put in a little cup, a little boulder, carried it outside, managed to clip off one of his legs. I felt bad about that, but do I understand that spiders perform an important functions? I don't want to get into spiders. Horses and spiders, probably not topics that will generate your understanding of embodiment. But let's just say that what if you can't have mindfulness without embodiment? What if knowing isn't enough? What if language isn't enough? I don't have to have the same language as Fancy Girl, but I better get embodied with Fancy Girl, and she's got to get embodied with me. Olivia, go ahead.
Well, when you said knowing isn't enough, before you were talking, what I think when I hear the word knowing is that, and this speaks to Sabine's question, sometimes I'll say, I know, but I don't know how I know. To me, that's embodying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I used to get, when I was in the corporate world, I'd get asked by recruiters to go, interview for positions, and they'd say, if they make the offer, will you take it? And I say, I have no idea, because I'll just know when I'm there if it's the right thing. I didn't really understand what was going on with me at the time, but it always worked out well, and so I knew I could trust that. Now I understand I was embodying, probably picking up the energy, seeing lots of things that I wasn't even conscious of, reading the person who would be my manager or whatever. Like, I think it's a way of knowing to me, that's not intellectual or limited to being intellectual. That's what I have to say.
Beautiful. Thank you. I can't see all my screen all of a sudden. So, okay, there it is. It came back. Yay. Hello. So I see Sabine's hand is up, but I also want to hear from everybody else, Renee and Joy and everybody. So, and whoever's hiding that I can't see. So go ahead, Sabine.
I would like to give you an example from art. I think there is a difference between, what we think we know. The RV example was wonderful. We think we know, but we don't. And similarly, in art, the assumption is oftentimes, let's say you're drawing a human face, right? Oh yeah, I know what a human face looks like. And then, later when you actually look closely, it's completely different from what you think. So and oftentimes it gets actually the knowledge can get in the way of drawing a portrait accurately. So, rather no, what you think you know gets in the way, but you don't know really. And I give you an example, for example, the eyes, right? You think, oh, the eyes are somewhere kind of higher up in the face. Well, usually it's actually, when we think they're higher up, then they actually are in reality. There's a lot of space, between your eyes and the top of your head. So that discrepancy between what we think we know, but if we're really in the moment, and Anna, and really, really looked, it would be entirely different from what we think. So what we know in art can really get in your way. I think it looks this way, but it really doesn't. It's kind of like a schema we have in our heads. Yeah, that's where the eyes should be, but often we're wrong about this. So what we think we know and what we really know, right?
Absolutely.
Quite a discrepancy. So it pays to look. And when I taught art, it's like, no, really look. Don't assume that you get it right. Really look at the relationships when you're drawing something, between the proportions. Really look. Don't assume you know, because you don't. Or a pear is just a pear. No, it's not. Draw a pear like a portrait. Oh yeah, it's just very simplified. But no, each pear has its individual shapes and markings, and you have to really hone in on that.
Oh yeah, we had that in art class in university. We'd draw the picture upside down of the person. You get a lot
Yep.
more accuracy. Or everybody draw a pear in the art class, and then they put all the pears in a bowl. Find your pear. Renee, you want to take
Thank
it from
you.
here? And there's somebody else raised their hand, but I forgot who it was. But Renee, go ahead and we'll catch up. Then Joy. Okay, thank you, Joy.
Hey, can you hear me? Everything?
Perfect.
Okay. Awesome. Um, well, first, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Dad, for leading this workshop. And I get a lot out of all of these workshops. I've just been to the Purview ones, but now I'm really loving this one. And I feel like I learn a lot through the art of storytelling, which is one of your gifts and one of the things that you are putting out into the world and embodying. So I just want to say thank you for that. Because I recognize that in myself. I learn a lot from hearing stories, the art of storytelling. And so, yeah, I think a couple of things come to mind for me. So, and it's about freeing our mind, right? But it's like so to come into the heart is something that I work with a lot with the women in our circles in our temple, and it's coming into the heart requires us to get out of the mind, let go of the mind, and then get more into the senses. And the senses, when we get into our senses more, actually help us to tap into the heart. It's interesting. One of the plant spirit medicines that I work with to help people to get into the heart is cannabis, because cannabis helps us forget, and it's actually a gift because it takes our mind away and we forgot our last thought. Well, good, because we need to let go of the mind to come into the heart, right? It's a requirement so that we can just let that go. It's like the monkey mind. It's not serving, right? The intellectual mind obviously it serves us really well, but it also very much a disservice for us on our spiritual path and on the path of coming into the heart. So it's good to just give it a break. Like let it go on a break for a while, take a vacation, and then you can really come into the heart. And I think the other thing I wanted to share is with embodiment. I love this topic so much, and it's helping me to better put into words for my students about embodying plant medicine practices. So when we embody a plant medicine practice, it's going into a dieta. So for instance, with the wise mushroom medicine, it has a lot of wisdom, this mushroom medicine. So its role on planet Earth is to preserve, and it helps preserve all of life. There's like a super highway of mycelium underneath the earth that's connecting plants and trees and communicating to help things survive. And that's what it does for humans, is it helps us to be sustainable. So it gives us a lot of insight about our health, about our emotional health and mental, physical. So it's worth developing a relationship with. And when you do an embodied practice with the plant medicine, you go into a dieta. So if you go into a dieta with the wise mushrooms, you are giving things up in order to receive. And you're showing that medicine that you are making a commitment to it. And the medicine knows that, sees that, and will give you a lot more. And part of the embodied practices, now I'm looking at it from a senses way. How can I, with my students going forward, help them to embody this practice through all of their senses? Like that's really awesome because they get a lot of reading material and they read all about the mushrooms, and that's great. But when you really want to connect with a medicine in that way, it is an embodied practice. Yeah, and that's what I wanted to share. I hope that made sense, and I hope that I'm getting what the whole the
Yeah,
thing
made
is.
made a lot
I'm
of
not
sense
off
to
track.
me. Thank you. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Renee. It's so
Be-
nice to have
Before
you in Canada
David,
here talk to you. And these are topics I care dearly about, what you brought up. I'm wanting to do the mushroom experience. I haven't done it, but I'm wanting to. And I wanted to point out this book, Love at Work by Olivia. You might enjoy this book, Renee. It's by Olivia. Check it out. Because I think she's a lot about embodiment and getting into the practice of the heart. In fact, I think a lot of growth OD that we've been working with, Olivia and myself and Tom and everybody here. Hi, Joy. It's been, get a sense of that embodiment because so much of it is about categories and systems and not about the embodiment. But go ahead, Betty, please. Or
yeah,
Joy
thank
was next. I'm not sure Joy or Betty was
Well, I
next.
just had a quick question that I wanted to ask when Renee had finished.
Go ahead.
Very, very interesting. But what is a dieta?
Yeah, so a dieta, it's like you're entering into a commitment with the plant medicine. And so it's like we're being mindful of what we take in to our bodies. So maybe we want to give up, maybe just as an example, maybe we want to give up coffee for a while for the plant medicine to show our commitment with it. Or maybe we want to give up putting pesticides in our body, which I highly recommend giving that up, taking a dieta from that, because you're going to see how much clearer your thoughts are and how much clearer you are as a channel with spirit. But it can also be giving up, it should include actually giving up things like maybe scrolling on social media, if that's something you do, maybe gaming, things that you're doing for that's more of a distraction than serving your highest good. Those kind of practices, it's like a discipline that you're doing to develop a relationship with the medicine. Yeah, it's like a
And
commitment to
the
yourself
dieta
spiritually.
is the relationship. Is that right? The
Dieta, it's
dieta.
like, yeah, you're developing a relationship with the medicine. It's
Okay.
kind of like a loaded word, right? But it means giving up things in order to receive. So that can
Oh,
be
okay.
physically, it can even be removing yourself from negative situations for a week before so that you kind of come in as a clean slate, not with a lot of extra baggage that you don't need anyway.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to get into Guy Debord a little bit today, if we can, because he wanted to get us out of TV. His concern was Americans in particular were watching 5 to 6 hours of TV at the time he was writing, which let's say I think the book Society of Spectacle came out in 64 or something like that. So they've been early on. That's before cell phones and before all the rest of it, gaming. Yeah, so I want to get a little bit into that. Because if our consciousness or mindfulness is in that arena, it makes it difficult for us to tune in to being. You understand what I'm saying? I know I've been there, and I've had to have interventions done on me to get me out of these things. What was it, Pokemon or something? I had 1,000,000 points going, ready to go for 2,000,000. I mean, you know how
Oh,
many
I
hours
remember
that is?
that, David. Oh my God, I was thinking, oh dear.
1,000,000 points.
My
So
brother played that game for 5 years, and then he's like, "Oh, David's into it." And I said what level you were, and he said, "Oh, that is an addiction."
I'm sure I didn't mean it that way, but
Like a Pokemon intervention. That's hilarious. Who needs that?
yeah, they all set me down, and therapist and a few other people said, "Oh, that's enough for Pokemon, David." I'm just afraid they're going to take my TV away or something. Anyway, so can I get in a couple more slides or something? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Well, I could go
We don't
quickly,
have much
David.
time, but yeah, go ahead, please, Joy.
Mine's pretty quick. I
Go
just
ahead,
wanted to
please.
say
Yeah, I'd rather do that.
the thing that came to my mind when you were talking about horses, I come from a family that has horses. I live in southern Ohio, and the part of my family that lives in Kentucky, even if they live in a subdivision, they have horses. They go to the barn and they have their horses. And when I was learning healing touch, even back in the 90s, I found out they call healing touch people in to help their horses.
Oh, yeah.
And I certainly did not know that. I didn't know it back then. And my brother was already getting married age by the time I was 5. So I didn't feel like I really grew up with him. But then later, as I got older and got to know him a little bit better, he used to say, well, we're a dog family. And he raised German Shepherds. And then he had Chow Chows for a while. And he had Basset Hounds or other hound dogs. And then his last dog was a Rottweiler, and he was able to train them, and they were good dogs, I guess. And I'm a cat person. So what came to my mind, I don't think it's exactly embodiment, but I have had a good relationship with all of my cats. And I just have one cat right now. And I had an experience where when she first came to live with me, she was not a kitten. She was already a grown cat. And I trained her it's not really training, but I think our pets, and I don't know this about horses, but I think our pets really want to please us. They really want to know their boundaries. What are they supposed to do? Now, some cats are more mischievous, but I had a Thanksgiving dinner, and people left the table because it was more like buffet style, and we were expecting more family to come. So there was still food on the table. And my cat jumped up on the chair, and people freaked out. They wanted to scold her, they wanted to smack her little nose. And I said, she won't get on the table. She won't get on the table because she knows she's not allowed on the table. And one thing that happened while a room full of people were there, she got up in the chair again, and everyone looked at me like, aren't you going to make her get down? Well, the best way to do it would have been to push in all the chairs so she couldn't jump up in a chair. But there were chairs. She jumped up in the chair, and I think she decided to test me. And she saw that there were so many other people there. She put her little paw up on the edge of the table. And I looked at her and I said, "You're not allowed up there." And she put her paw back down, and she didn't try to get on the table again. I just felt like we knew each other.
Yeah.
And even now she likes to sit on the arm of my easy chair. Well, I'm liable to have my glasses on there, the phone, the remote, all kinds of things. And she looks at me like, "Are you going to clean the arm of that chair off so I can sit up there?" So I move everything. She's only allowed on one side of the chair. There's too many things for her to get into on this side. So she waits for me to move everything, pick up my glasses or whatever, and then she gets up on the arm of the chair. So I think maybe it's more of being in attunement with each other, because we don't even have to say words. I know that she wants to get up on the chair, and she knows, when are you going to move all that stuff so I can get up on the chair? And I just feel like we have an unspoken relationship in that way.
Yeah, that's great. Beautiful story. Yeah. I'm going to show you one more slide, maybe two, and then wrap this up for today. Let me see if we can get this one going. All right. All right. So move this out of the way. Okay. Maybe let me stop. I'm not seeing the right thing here. Let's see, share and go to Guy Debord. Okay. There he is. He's up there on the top. Okay, now I see him. Well, this is nice. Let me see if I can get him to go big screen. Now he's flooded all the screens. All right, so this is what Guy Debord looks like, Derive. He died in his 60s, committed suicide. He's famous for walking urban streets and looking to break habits of what we've been calling mindfulness, to resist our own alienation. Heidegger's mindfulness asks the question, what is the forgetfulness of being? And so I'm excited about that. Just to summarize Heidegger, forgetfulness, superficiality of the forgottenness of being. Superficiality never overcomes, but his words and opens its ground. Just think of it as ground for now. Why? We clear being, we clear the here, we clear the there. The result is a loss of the guardianship of the truth that being shapes and discloses. And the option is the grounded possibility and necessity at all forgetting, not retaining of being, dismisses human comportment or human, I guess, our humanness in the world. Abground, which is his word, in almost of Dasein, which means their being or being there, grounded in being away by refusal of concealing. So he's wanting to go deeper into our refusal to go deeper, or do thinkable by making categories and systems. So he's speaking against that. And then we ask, do we and think? So we'll have this breakout another time, another day. So I'll come back. But I'd be interested to have your reactions to today's session. So I had a great time. So I'm glad you're here. And how did it go? What are your thoughts? Closing thoughts? Betty, go ahead.
Well, it's funny. I was thinking that to myself when you asked your question. This session has required from me to be thinking all the time. I was like Sabine, trying to get at embodiment. When Renee talked, I was trying to get at Dhyana. And when Joy talked about her cat, it dawned on me that I had an experience with, I'm not a cat person, Joy, dog person, big time. But I kept my son's cat this week. And so she got me thinking all over again about how that cat and I coordinated by the end. At the beginning, nothing at all. I don't even think he wanted to poop. He thought, what am I doing here? So then, listening to you, I'm thinking, he did start to warm up to me, but it wasn't just warming up. And thank you, Joy. That has given me more perspective. So, a lot of thinking tonight because these were not subjects that I've spent a huge amount of time with. Forgetfulness, I still have a hard time connecting to mindfulness, but that's up to me to get over.
Well, maybe you're connected to one world, the dog world, and it's easy to forget the cat world.
Oh, right. Okay, definitely. Absolutely. Thank you.
It's an easy way out, but
Yeah.
I'm mindful. I'm totally consumed in that arena.
Yeah.
I got to be
Yeah.
tuning out a whole bunch of other
Yeah.
arenas.
Yeah. You're right. Well, that's funny.
So Betty, why don't you pick Olivia?
Oh, yeah. I do want to hear Olivia. Yeah.
Thanks. We're maybe not raising hands.
I don't know what
It's
we're doing.
interesting what you said, Betty, because for me, it's the forgetting that takes me, and it almost speaks to what you were saying, Renee, about by forgetting, I have to be embodied to kind of function. If I'm forgetting where I am or what I'm doing, I'm only functioning as being embodied in a way. It feels like, which to me, so I'm mindful, but not from here, but from my whole body. It's kind of how I see it. So I love the conversation and look forward to more. Thanks.
Great. You may pick somebody or not.
All right. Paul.
What a great session. And the helter-skelter nature of it, if I can use that, is exactly why it's so valuable. Because it's itself a generator and an example of what we are all up to. I'm suggesting. And lots of keywords I've written: mindfulness, forgetting attunement, being attentive, retention, abyss, vortex, swirl, utmost indifferent. All of these are very powerful little stimuli to more thought. And the degree to which we are, what was it, utmost, I think it was you, David, said something about utmost indifference.
Yep.
The opposite of that is total attentiveness. And total attentiveness is really hard to do. Mm-hmm. And we don't do it with one another, with everything and everybody in our life. If I really am going to pay attention to this now, this here, wherever I am, do with Fancy Girl. Well, I'm here and the horse is here, and what more do we need?
Yeah.
And the answer is a kind of attention that picks up signals that you cannot pick up when you have carefully labeled everything and put it in boxes. Mm-hmm. And it's so much fun doing that if you're, that kind of a person. I love collecting and sorting and categorizing. I go ape with all of that. It's because since I have managed to arrange everything into neat little rows and boxes and checked off all of this stuff, I feel like I'm at home. And you may be at home in some sense, but you were now out of touch. And that's what happened to me with that small boy.
Yeah.
I was so far out of touch with this human being to whom I was assigned to give my utmost attention. And I wasn't giving him my utmost attention.
Yeah, me too.
The aftermath of that, in a word, when I came back after the Christmas holiday, I don't know why, I had a paper plate, a plastic fork, a plastic knife, and a spoon. And I don't know how it all came about. I said something like, let's pretend we're at a restaurant and you're the waiter. And I can't even reconstruct this. But what happened is when I got into this sort of role-playing game where I was trying to draw the boy into just talking, he lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yep.
And suddenly he was playing a part. I'm the waiter in the restaurant, and you're an adult customer, and you're having breakfast, and would you like waffles? And he just, instantly entered the spontaneous, creative world. And I'm sitting there going, I was shocked because I'm not the role playing guy. Oh, okay. You be the mama and I'll be the daughter. That's not part of my shtick. It's not part of my repertoire. And yet I was pulled into it because this is working. Get a clue.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. It's a good summary. Who are you going to pick, Paul?
I turned off my microphone. Tom.
Noticed, yeah.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, great session. My thought was that I learned something like driving when I was very young. We've all probably driven 1,000,000 miles in our lives. And after driving a long time, you get in the car and you're really not mindful about the driving itself. You're mindful about where am I going and what am I doing and listening to the radio or whatever, or talking to someone. So then I was reminded when I got behind that wheel in a motorhome that I suddenly had to become mindful about something that I had forgotten how difficult it really was when I first learned to drive. Like first time I ever went on a highway and cars were coming from the opposite direction on two-lane highway at 60 miles an hour. I'm sitting there with my dad thinking, I hope I don't drift over into the other lane. So I thought the driving thing really hit. And what also hit me was what Renee said, that the heart requires us to get out of our mind to actually get in the heart. I think I wrote that down correctly, Renee. If I didn't, tell me. But that's another thing that I spend a lot of time in the mind that should really be in the heart. So I need to be mindful of getting out of the mind and getting into the heart. And I will pick Sabine.
Tom, thank you. Well, my thought is that it's about David in storytelling and Grace Ann have talked a lot about timing, right? It's also, I was thinking it is a matter of what is right when. Because, I mean, the categories, it's undeniable. They are helping us too. But I think to recognize when is the time to be in categories and when is it time to be out of them.
Yeah.
And to know when the right time again, right? The right time is to be in each, because we can't go around, as Paul hinted at, to be like totally attentive all the time. We'd go nuts.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, if we paid attention to everything, if I assumed that every little pebble in my backyard is, important, I mean, it's like I'd go bonkers, right? But it's to know when is my point, to just know when is the right time for the deep attentiveness and when is the right time, for lack of a better term, to be an automatic pilot. Because, do I really need to be mindful when I turn the washing machine on and dump the clothes in the dryer? I mean, I don't have to go deep with this, right? And it's to know what to do when. Oh.
Thank you. Who are you going to pick? Oh, you can't pick it with your mic off. So,
Joy, you haven't spoken yet, right? Who hasn't talked at this point? Joy?
Thank you, Sabine. I'll just close up by saying that it is always stimulating to my brain and to my thought processes to attend these sessions, but it does also open my heart. And today when Renee spoke, I felt like I really got to know her a lot better. And I consider you, all of you, my colleagues, and we are forming friendships here. So that warms my heart. And I will pass it on. Is there anyone who hasn't had a turn? I can't see for sure. David?
Renee didn't
Renee
go
didn't.
yet, so
Nay.
I'll have to do an inventory, but yeah, Renee.
Back to Renee. Mhm.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm just so happy that I came on this call, and it's just given me so much inspiration for things to go forward into my day and bring forward into my day and my week. So thank you all. It's like you're all medicine for me, in a lot of ways. So I just appreciate your spirits and your hearts and your sharing and all of it. And I'm learning from everyone here, so thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate developing friendships as well. So thank you all. I feel like, I guess what's been coming to mind as you've all been sharing our last thoughts here is the magic of now keeps coming into my mind. I'm like, oh, embodiment. We want to call in embodiment. It's like for me, I'm like, oh, I could call in the magic of now. And it's true. I think, Sabine, we want to choose wisely on what we put our attention to. Like that's very, very good wisdom. But I think when we want to do that, like, oh, I'm with my son right now and he has something important to share with me, I'm going to call in the magic of now to be fully present with him, not just listening with my mind, but listening with my whole heart. Yeah, and maybe even tapping into my senses can help me with that. Like you were saying, Olivia, because it's about embodiment is just such a deep, rich word, right? And it's really about coming more into our senses. And yeah, so I think that's so beautiful, and I look forward to doing that practice this week. We can all share how we've done, maybe. It sounds like a really good practice to do. Yeah, really coming into the now, embodying the now, I guess. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thanks, Dad. Love you. Thanks,
Oh, I love you
everyone.
too. Did everybody get to say goodbye? Olivia, did you get to say
Thanks,
goodbye?
Dad.
I did. Yes,
Okay.
thanks.
All right. Then I'm going to close out and say, what a great group of people. Thank you for letting me explore topics that don't normally get explored. And I appreciate it because these
Thank
are
you.
topics dear to my heart. So thank you so much.
Bye,
Thank you, David.
everybody.
Bye.
Love you so much.